Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Figuarts Super Saiyan Sewn Gohan figure, which is basically the Gohan where he's all beat up at the end of the Cell Saga, and everybody's very excited for this figure. Everybody, that's a statistical fact. And here's the thing, it is very good in some ways, and in others it does disappoint, which is obviously very disappointing. I was very excited for this figure also. And like I said, don't get me wrong, it is a good figure in many ways. So let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about 5.5 inches to the top of his hair, which is obviously kind of tall. It is a Super Saiyan hair, so be aware of that. It makes him just about 14 centimeters, which is fine. He's definitely supposed to be small. Unfortunately, guys, I have almost no figures here still. I'm working on it, guys. I'm getting to Texas. I'll be able to do more comparisons once I get there. All of my collection is there, though. Even some of the stuff I've gotten recently, it's there. So I don't have much to show you. But we can still show you the figure as it is, which is, like I said, mostly a good thing. Aesthetically, it's very pleasing. You guys are probably like me in that you like this slightly more mature Gohan. Not necessarily the battle damage look, but that's obviously a fine thing to have. It's a nice addition. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited for this figure, and I think in many ways you guys are going to like it. But there are some things. But before we get to that, let's look at the accessories. We have a bunch of different faces. We have the stern face that comes on him in the package. We have a stern face where he's looking off to the side. We have a teeth gritted face with the eyes just neutrally located. They do seem a bit wide, though. I have to say, I don't care for the placement of the pupils on that one. We have one where his mouth is open like he's yelling. And then we have one where his eyes are closed and his mouth is open like he's constipated. We do have both the Super Saiyan 1 and Super Saiyan 2 hairs, and I have to say I'm very pleased with the coloring and the shading on these. The yellow is not glossy, and the shading is not incredibly heavy. It doesn't look like candy corn. Might be slightly heavy, but I think that really suits the Super Saiyan look, so I am okay with that. We do have a few hands, not a ton. Surprising couple hands are missing out of this set, but we do have the two fist hands that come on him in the package. Two sort of, not clenched, but kind of closed hands, which would be good for a Kamehameha or whatever else you want to use. He's got the two wide open palms, and then the two more relaxed or weak looking hands. No martial arts hands, surprisingly, where the two fingers are kind of out. We don't have any of those, so that's okay. It's not a ton of stuff, but having both heads on there is nice, and then a bunch of different faces, so that's a good thing. Now, as far as the figure goes, we do have some paint, and that's actually one of the problems. Actually, it's a couple of the problems. The paint for the hair is good. That's fine. The paint for the face is mostly fine. No shading on the skin at all. And then we do have some shading on the purple clothing, but that's really only at his crotch and inner thighs, which makes it look kinda like he peed himself. So that's not great. The shading doesn't align with the wrinkles in the clothing. It's just like somebody took an airbrush and went right down the pee area. So it's not great, I gotta be honest, and this is actually the better. I got two of them. This one has less shading. The other one's a lot heavier, so it looks like he peed on himself twice. So that is not good. Other paint issues include the fact that the middle part of the torso, it's molded purple and painted tan, painted skin color. That's not how you do it. You mold it the color of the skin, especially when every other part of the skin is molded. You'll want to keep it uniform. Now, they did do a good job matching the color, but since it's painted and the purple is molded, you do have some issues along the edge. It's not so much on the front, but on the back, there is a serious amount of bleeding going on, so that's not ideal. The painting for the wristbands is okay, so no problems there. And then we have the painted legs, which are molded in purple. That's fine. I mean, that makes sense. It's a lot of purple. The legs, however, are painted rather than like Goku's where they're mostly molded, and the painting is fuzzy basically around all of the edges. Especially on here, it's particularly fuzzy. So obviously it's not a total deal breaker. You're not going to notice it as soon as you look at it on a shelf, but it's not as good as we would want it to look, especially considering this is a smaller figure and he doesn't have a ton of accessories. I would have expected them to spend a little bit of extra money to get him to not have to have painted flesh tones, because that almost never works. It's definitely a bit of a bummer. Last thing that does bother me about the paint is the boots. there is no line work on the boots, and oftentimes we have at least some line work on there. They're just molded brown, and it makes it look very cheap to not have any shading or anything on there, so it's a bit of a bummer. It just doesn't live up to what I hoped it would be. Now, maybe I had my sights too high, but these are still objective issues, so I don't know. It's just kind of a bummer. Anyway, let's move on, because there are unfortunately some more bummers. Good thing though, I love the molded skin. It's a great color. It's a nice tone. Definitely could use a little bit of shading, but that's okay. The purple, it's not quite as saturated as any of the pictures showed, but it's still probably saturated enough, so that is okay. Alright, so moving on to the articulation. It's mostly standard, but we have some issues again, which is, again, a bummer. Lots of bummers. So let's pull the hair off in the face so you can see the articulation for the head. It's nothing new, which is not great. I'm still waiting for them to go double ball peg. We still have the tiny ball hinge, and as you see, it's in there crooked, and that's why there's a problem. It's so seated inside the hair, you can't get to it to really do anything. All you can do is kind of wiggle the hair around, and maybe you can get it to situate. But with the face on, that's going to be very hard. You almost always have to take the face off or pop the head off entirely to get this ball hinge where you want it. It's not a problem, but it could be so much easier and so much better with just a double ball peg. But you do get that range up there, so that's pretty good. You have another ball peg for the neck, and it actually moves around really nicely. We've seen a lot of the Dragon Ball figures where that joint just doesn't work. This one does. You can really move that neck around. So that's pretty good. You can move the neck around, no problem. For the shoulders, we have a big ball peg that goes into the body, and that allows the arm to move around like this. Then you have a cap. You have a flesh tone one over here, and one that's sculpted like torn cloth over here. Now, when you move it around, they don't always come back out. This one is a little bit easier to fix because you can just kind of go like that and pull it out and it hides the joint. No problem. This one, on the other hand, is almost impossible to bring it out. So it just kind of gets stuck in there and sits in there, and it only works about halfway. Again, it's not a huge deal, but it's something worth noting. It does take away from the aesthetics of the figure. You do get good range, though. I have to say, I really like the range. You can move it around, no problem. The ball hinge works great. The arm moves around, no looseness. It's fine. You have your bicep swivel, so that's a good thing. Your double jointed elbow, really nice range. And then you have your standard little tiny ball hinge for the wrists. So really no issues. It's just that these caps, like you can see right there, it's in there, and you can't get it out that easily. You have to. I've played with it a bunch. When I first opened it, it was a lot harder to get out, but it's still a little bit of an issue. You're gonna have to go in there and pull it down every time. Very minor thing, but it's a review, so that's what we do here. Now, in here we have an upper torso diaphragm joint and then a ball peg for the lower torso. So ball peg down here works fine. It moves all over the place. It's completely free. All it has is this sculpted belt hiding it, so that's good. Upper torso, it almost doesn't move at all. You can shift it from side to side a little bit. Very little bit, not even enough to mention. Does it rotate? Almost not at all, not enough to mention. Does it go forward and back? Even less than the other two. It just doesn't work. And maybe you can pop it out a little bit to do it, but I sure can't, and I've pulled on it very hard anymore, and I feel like I'd break it. So this upper torso joint shouldn't be there, or it should be better. For the hips, we have the same as the new Vegeta or the new Goku or Trunks. You have the swivel that brings the legs forward and back, and you can bring the leg that far forward. On this side, however, it catches the belt, and it picks the belt up, and you get this huge gap in there. The only way to avoid that is to really rotate it around or rotate it backwards, which you can do. It's not a big deal, but you have to be aware of that. The leg will definitely hit this and pick it up. But you do get pretty nice range out of that leg. I like it. I think that's okay. And then you have a hinge that allows the leg to go out to the side. Now, a lot of people have the complaint that you can't bring them out to the side enough, and it is a little bit limited, but it's not that much more limited than the old style, and I think it looks better, so I think it's okay. I think that's a good thing. We have, of course, our thigh swivels built into that, so you can do whatever you want there. No thigh swivel down here like Goku had, where the leg went inside the pants and you could rotate that. You don't get that on these guys, or on this guy. You get a double jointed knee, but it doesn't go much better than 90, which is another bummer. Very, very limited range for Figuarts. This one goes a little bit farther, slightly different sculpt, but still it's not great. It's just not great. And then when you bend the knees, you can see the paint issues. There's like a purple ring going all the way around his kneecap. So, again, not great. And then we have our ankles, which we know the DBZ figures generally have pretty lousy ankles. His might be the worst. It's really disappointing. When you put his legs straight down as close as they can get, you might be able to get his feet to be flat on a surface. That's it. There is no rocking inside. They go out, which is absolutely useless. They do not go in. That is it. So the little tiny double ball pegs that are in there are almost worthless. You can bring the foot forward just a little bit. You can bring it back just a little bit, and then you have a toe hinge, which actually is okay. So in a lot of ways, this figure is very disappointing. Yes, once you pose it, it's going to look really cool, and it's generally, like I said, an aesthetically pleasing figure, but it does have a lot of issues that it just really shouldn't have. And I'm not going to say don't get it. I think you're going to like it mostly, but you do have to be aware of those issues before you shell out the money. So now you are. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have new videos up every single day. We talk about action figures, movies, TV shows, video games, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you turn on notifications so you see when those videos come out. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, and in the meantime, keep collecting.